Yo, what's good, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another Tyler Perry Sisters review. This is season 6, episode 15, entitled Too Close to Home. If this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning family member, then you already know what it is and what it always will be. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, tell somebody, you feel me? If not, just sit back, relax, and we gonna get right into this messy thing. Now, of course, just like with every episode of Sisters, we pick up where we left off, which is at the grocery store. And I think we can all agree that nothing good ever happens at this damn grocery store. There is always a run-in with somebody you don't need to run into. There's always an issue with somebody you got to issue with. There's always drama with someone who you having drama with at the time. Okay? Nothing great happens at the grocery store. Every time I see a grocery store, when there's a scene in Sisters, I know it's about to be some mess. And that's what we kind of walked into. You know, we see Karen and Zach and Fatima, they bump into each other at the grocery store. And even though this scene really could have gone in another direction, I'm going to go ahead and say I appreciate it for what it was, even though all of them got on my nerves except Michael. Okay? All of them got on my nerves because it was them kind of doing the normal dance that we see between the three. Karen is attempting to have a conversation with them. And at this point, there is no need for them to have a conversation. And I stated this when I did the trailer breakdown. There is no purpose in having a conversation. I do understand that Karen has genuine concerns, especially after finding out that Michael is Zach's son. You know, she was like, you really didn't have to do a DNA test because he looks just like you. And she wants to know where her child is going to fit in. Personally, I think that's a legit concern, but it's not a conversation that her and Zach need to have. And then, you know, she tells Fatima that she's the problem, that Fatima is the problem. And I've honestly reached my cap a long time ago with the back and forth with Fatima and Karen. To me, it is extremely played at this juncture in Sisters. Now, I do understand, and I do even agree, and I think it's justifiable for the reason why Karen got an issue with Fatima at this point, because it's been less than 48 hours since Fatima barged into her house unannounced and uninvited. That was a huge blow up. And I get it. I get we're having residual issues and feelings based on what happened, but this is not the time to explore that. So Zach is not really trying to hear it. He's not into the conversation. And Fatima ends up telling Karen that she's a problem for insecure women. And of course, she was insinuating that Karen was the insecure woman. And I said, well, Fatima, baby, you're insecure as well. So if you're going to call, it was a lot of projection in this episode. And I'm like, Fatima, if you're going to call someone insecure, babe, you're insecure as well, because weren't you the one getting security footage of Karen and Zach at the coffee house? Sis, we ain't forget about that. Only insecure people do that. Only people who don't trust their significant other do that. Now, I understand you're not trusting Zach. You got every right to. But there is some insecurity in there as well. But we going to move right along, because that's not what this situation is about. And so as they're leaving, Karen was following them. I said, no, she not. No, she is not following them with this buggy, Lord. But yes, she was. Yes, she was. So Zach ends up walking out, and Fatima tells Karen, after Karen tells her, you know, we're going to have to be cordial if this thing is going to work out. And I'm like, we know that, babe, but this ain't the time. And Fatima tells her about the condition in which they found Michael. And she was like, Karen, you know, you're going to be a caring mother. You're going to be a good mother. We found Michael, you know, where he has on a spoiled diaper. He's not being taken care of, and he's getting beaten. And you could tell as Fatima was telling Karen this, there was a softening to her appearance. She really didn't have anything to say after Fatima revealed the truth about Michael's living conditions and what he was experiencing in his household. And so later on in the episode, we see that Karen purchased some things for Michael. And one of the things was a car seat because they didn't have one. Now, there are some people who feel like Karen shouldn't have done it because Zach got his own money and they were in the same store. He could have purchased all of those things for his son and he didn't. I understand that. And I also understand the reason why Karen did it. And I also feel like people have not taken into consideration that even though Michael is completely innocent in this entire equation, Michael was conceived while Karen and Zach were together. He was conceived while Zach had a cheating spell at the strip club. This is so random. With a damn stripper. This is the baby that you had on me. And I think it takes a big person to put your feelings aside and understand that is what you're doing is best for the child. It's not about your feelings for the father. It's not even about your own feelings right now. You know that this child is in lack and you're in a position to help fill that. And I thought that was a huge move on Karen's end. I feel like it was genuine, even though some people don't. They feel like she got something up her sleeve. I said, that girl can't do nothing. She can't do absolutely nothing without it being, an ulterior motive. And I must say that I did honestly enjoy that moment between Karen and Fatima because it felt genuine. It felt like what Karen was doing was genuine. And it felt as if the things that Fatima was saying was genuine. I really thought that this was going to be like a great thing until, damn it, the next day when Fatima gets to work and she's talking to Andy and she asks Andy, is Karen okay? And Andy is like, yeah, she's okay. Like, are you sure? Like, I think y'all need to get her checked out. There's a clinical term for that. It's called bipolar. I said, wait a damn minute, Fatima, because you're not going to do that. First of all, you ain't no doctor to diagnose anybody. And if you going to diagnose somebody, sis, diagnose yourself. You are someone who cannot control your anger. You are someone who constantly assaults people, constantly putting your hands on people. You space out at any given moment and then come back to as if nothing happened. You yourself have called yourself crazy. So what's your diagnosis? So I didn't like that. Then she was like, pregnant women don't act like that. So every pregnant woman. You've been around every pregnant woman. I didn't like that. I felt like it was a slap in the face, especially after the moment that they had, because I felt if Fatima was genuinely concerned about Karen's mental health and her mental well-being, you had a moment. You even invited this woman into your house and she declined, but you invited her. So if you were so concerned, that was the moment that you should have said something. That's why I just can't rock with it. And even with Andy, first of all, you're just not going to talk about my friend to me like that. But I've already stated, Andy is not Karen's friend. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to put my flag on that. But moving right along to other stuff that happened in this episode. One of the biggest missed opportunities in this episode was the scene with Maurice and Calvin. Now, granted, I don't really give two damns about either of these characters anymore, but since they're on our screen, let's make the most of it. There was a moment in the conversation between Maurice and Calvin where Calvin basically said something along the lines of, especially with all the things I've been through. And Maurice said, well, what have you been through? And Calvin deflected. He was like, nah, we're not going to do that. And it's not enough alcohol in this house for me to even talk about that. And what I really would have hoped was for a moment of just complete vulnerability between Calvin and Maurice. And I brought up, if you watch Our Sister's Keeper with me and Erica Vane, I brought up how in season 2, we learned that Calvin was sexually abused. His uncle, his biological uncle, took him to this 35-year-old woman to perform. Basically, something happened that should never happen to anybody, and especially not a damn child, because the uncle didn't want Calvin to turn out gay like his adoptive gay fathers. It was just horrible. And Tyler touched on that, revealed that, and never talked about it again. And I'm like, Maurice is going through his thing. Maurice is up and down with his emotions. But I'm like, if we want to see some type of breakthrough, some type of like real moment between them, that would have been a great segue for that opportunity to happen. And it just didn't. It was just basically a hit and miss. And at this moment, I know for me, I don't really care about Maurice. I don't care what happens to him. I just don't. Like, he is just so far gone with the way he has treated people. I just can't get down with it. And Calvin, he's just there. And I just really don't care about what's happening. I want to see more, like, to get me engaged, but I know that's not ever going to happen. So moving right along. And I didn't think this episode was like bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't like, it was, you know, it was cool. It was cool. Let's get to Danny and Preston, y'all. Danny is, first of all, what I would never do, I'm not tiptoeing in my own house. Danny is tiptoeing, basically, because she don't want to get caught. Danny is dressed up. Danny still looks like she's floating on air from her little, you know, 3-way date that she had earlier. And Preston ends up waking up, you know, and they have a conversation. And he was like, you know, he's never smoking again. That happened off one puff he had on her clothes. Basically, it doesn't even matter what they was talking about. The thing that gets me is Danny begins to tell him about, you know, her night. You know, she was honest somewhat about Andy having a date. Her and Sabrina were there to make sure that everything was okay, but failed to mention that her and Sabrina kind of had their own dates going on as well. And so Preston asked her, oh, you got the flower in your hair. I said, oh, you know, forgot, sis. If you gonna be messy, make sure you clear yourself of the evidence. Okay? Now, I am not an advocate for cheating, and I ain't trying to tell nobody how to cheat. But if you gonna cheat, at least be good at it. You know what I'm saying? That is horrible advice. That is horrible advice, but I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. So, the truth of the matter is, Danny is feeling Stalker Tony. That's just the truth of the matter. She's feeling Stalker Tony. So much so that the next morning, Danny is leaving the house 2 hours early. She didn't want Preston to make breakfast. And we all know that Preston can throw down in the kitchen. Danny was like, no, I'm good. I said, oh, you full already? So you full off love, sis? That's what my grandma used to say back in the day when I was around my little boyfriend or whatever. And I come in the house and she's like, oh, you want something to eat? No, ma'am, I'm good. Oh, you full off love, huh? So that's what I said. Danny, you full off love? You didn't want dinner? Because y'all did eat at the restaurant. You didn't want dinner. You didn't want Preston to cook you enough for breakfast. What's going on with you? And you leaving 2 hours early. So, of course, that was alarming or very different. And Preston made reference to it. Like, you don't never leave this early. Oh, yeah, I just want to beat traffic. I know it is congested in Atlanta, but damn, is it that bad, y'all? It might be. I don't live there. But is it that bad 2 hours early, by good sis? If I was Preston, I would already be thinking there's something going on. And even though he asked Danny, like, we've been here before, we'll be good, you know, and then you do something. And then Danny told him, this is the first time we have ever been committed. I said, well, those are the facts. She wasn't lying, but it was like one of them things where we're seeing this repetitive, you know, this merry-go-round with Danny when she does seem to be in the place where she want to make things work with Preston or at least give it a chance. She's not really in there. I'm like, I don't even think Danny really knows what it means to be committed to somebody, because you're telling Preston that you're committed while on the other hand, you're thinking about Tony. Your curiosity has been sparked, and there's nothing wrong with that, but communicate that. Communicate that with Preston. But we all know the inevitable is going to happen. We know that her and Preston will not last and it's going to be over, I'm sure, before season 6 ends. And Tony is going to be, you know what I'm saying, her new beau. He's going to be the person, you know, gathering her attention. There is a moment that Karen goes to see Andy. And this whole scene was very interesting because normally you at a penthouse, You have people who are on the list that could come up. And Karen had to call Andy to get buzzed up. I said, oh, when we did this. Normally Karen would just appear, but now she got to get buzzed up. Okay. And so when Karen comes in, Andy has this attitude telling Karen, I should be pissed at you. I don't know what Karen I'm getting today. And Karen was like, look, I've already apologized. I apologize. Oh, that's what you want to call it? I said, Tyler, why are you having Karen on this apology tour? What the hell is she apologizing to Andy for yet again? And just as I said on our sister's keeper, it is hard for me to look at any scenes with Karen and Andy and have a sense of, oh yeah, these are real friends. They're not friends to me. So it's very hard watching them together. It's very hard seeing Andy tell Karen that you're my best friend. Is she really? Because you let Fatima talk about her as if she's just some random chick on the street, but she's your best friend. You can miss me with that. Karen ends up telling Andy that she ripped up the check that she received from Zach. I said, girl, why you should have never ripped that check up. But I understand we do stuff when we angry. But that right there, I ain't ripping up no money. I don't care how mad I am at you. And so Andy tells her that, she will give her the money. Now, mind you, Andy has already given Karen the loan to get her shop initially. And now she's giving Karen more money. I don't know. I just wouldn't take the money from Andy. I wouldn't. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. But, giving Karen the loan, I guess, is definitely not going to hurt Andy financially since she's in the penthouse and she's driving a Rolls Royce. But I'm just ready for season 7, y'all. I'm just ready for season 7. And so we get Sabrina and Calvin and Maurice. And she's over there she looked amazing in that little green little outfit she had on. And she was basically telling them about bio, and Maurice was like, I was right, wasn't I? And I'm just like, no, you were not right. But basically, Sabrina was telling him, yes, he was. And they need to go see Andy to try to find out exactly, what's going on. Especially if this bail gets revoked. They need to find out, what can possibly happen. And maybe Andy could give them the money. I said, now, wait a minute now. Y'all know I don't like Andy ass like that. But on SISTAS, everything is becoming automatically Andy's money. Instead of the ATM, it's the AAM. Automatically Andy's money. And no. She's already done what she had to do. She had to get $1 million to cover Sabrina's bail. And now you're going to ask her for more money, sis? I'm sorry. If I was Andy, I would, no, you're not. I just wouldn't do it. I'm sorry. We gotta do something else, Sabrina. No. I'm like, dawg, man, y'all don't know how to ask for like $20, $100. Y'all going straight to a cool meal. I need friends like this. I don't have now. I probably got one person. I probably got one person in my life I probably could get $1 million for it if need be. I'm like, what y'all? Jesus, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money, but they are just in dire straits, and I get it. I really do. But Lord, I'm so sick of this storyline. I'm so sick of this storyline with this whole thing because we know they didn't do anything. It just needs to be wrapped up, tied up, sealed up, and never to return again. It just needs to be over. It really needs to be over. Now, this one finna get in Zach and Fatima ass, okay? Poor Michael. So as Fatima is taking Michael's jacket off on the couch, she notices that he has bruises on his back. And they also examine like other parts of his body, asking him like where it hurts or whatever. And he raises up his the leg of his jeans, and there's bruises there or it hurts there. And I was just like, Lord, this poor baby. I hate seeing kids being mistreated, abused. It just do something to me. It really does. And now This entire thing started because Zach had this thing he couldn't eat because he was so concerned about his son eating, which was the whole purpose of him going over there. They get this baby to the house, gives him a bath, but don't feed him. I said, what? Wasn't that the whole purpose? Was to feed this baby? Then didn't put him in the bed. Michael slept on the couch. And they had the nerve to stack pillows on top of this baby. Pillows. Y'all didn't get that baby a sheet, a cover, and Fatima is up in the bed, sleeping lovely. I said, what the hell is this? Why is Zach fully dressed and he's sleeping on this couch? I said, you know what? This the mess I be talking about that don't make a bit of sense. What are we doing right now? What exactly are we doing? So Fatima's about to go to work, and her and Zach have a brief conversation, about how Heather hadn't called, and she's telling Zach, well, maybe you should call her. And he's like, no, because she didn't call me. And Fatima says, yeah, that just goes to show the kind of mother that she is. Basically she haven't called to check on her child. It's still about her child. And I'm like, well, Zach basically kidnapped him. And then we find out at the end of the episode that Heather went through the proper channels by going to the police department to have an escort come with her as she gets her child, because she obviously knows where he is. I'm like, this thing is going to be a mess. And what I'm not looking forward to, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it probably every video, I'm not looking forward to see Heather's identity as a mom and her reputation as a mom just completely get scrutinized and torn down for Zach to look like the model parent, for Zach and Fatima to look like they would be the best option. And even if they are, I'm not interested in seeing another person get torn down for Fatima and Zach to reign supreme. I just think there are other ways to write this. Even if that's going to be the end result for Michael to be with Fatima and Zach, I just think there are other ways to introduce that instead of just making this woman look horrible for the sake of them, because we've seen this how many times? We've seen it with Karen. We've seen it with Hayden. Now we're about to see it with Heather. We have seen this happen so many times, and I honestly don't want to see it happen again, especially with there being a child involved. But those are just my 2 cents. I think that I talked about everything that happened in this episode that I felt was worthy to talk about or that needed to be discussed. Yeah, I think I did. But if I didn't, y'all can put it down in the comments, and we'll discuss it further down there. So I want to thank you guys for listening, and until next time, y'all be safe out there, and I will holler at y'all later.